Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. We've got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, folks, what happened at Texas A&M between got Mark Stoops, who almost got that job. They wound up with Mike Elko, and it definitely got rough in Texas. Look, there was a kind of a revolt that happened, and we're going to go into all that here in just a second.
Remain calm. All is well.
This is a story on Deadspin by DJ Dunson. It says Texas A&M stoops to new low by unhiring Mark Stoops amid fan revolt. It says if you thought Texas A&M couldn't stoop any lower after paying Jimbo Fisher a record amount to scram, you thought wrong, because they did just that on Saturday night. All signs pointed the Aggies hiring Kentucky's Mark Stoops. Said, but the report kicked off a brush fire and threw the Texas A&M fan base into a tizzy. Said the smoke permeating from Texas A&M on Twitter wasn't a celebration. It was a sign of revolt from fans burning their jerseys. Says A&M message boards burst into flames as the deal was on the verge of becoming official. In the meantime, Stoops had a game to win, and, of course, he was worried about that. Then at 10 p.m., Stoops was as good as gone. That's what everybody thought. And it was reported, barring a last-minute collapse, sources tell AggieYell.com, that Kentucky coach Mark Stoops is likely to be the next head coach at Texas A&M. However, around midnight, Pete Thamel threw cold water on the rumors that Stoops would be assuming the reins. Texas A&M was gauging the public reaction, or media reports jumped the gun. It soon became apparent that Stoops to Texas A&M was not, in fact, a done deal. At 1 a.m., Stoops finally put the rumors to bed by announcing his intention to remain with the Wildcats. He says, I know there's been much speculation about me and my situation the last couple of days. It's true, I was contacted about a potential opportunity this weekend, but after celebrating a big win, I'm going to stay with the blah, 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 blah. He's going to stay with Kentucky. And it talks about how he was not given extra money. That's usually a Jimmy Sexton move. He usually gets his guys extra money, but Kentucky didn't offer him a pay raise. I think they said, look, we're paying you as much as we can at $9 million a year. If you're going to leave, you're going to leave. And there was some issues also with the assistant coaches and things like that. That Stoops wanted some of his assistants to go with him, which probably wouldn't have been a problem for Texas A&M, but I don't know if the assistants were ready to go just like that. And Kentucky, their AD and all those folks were trying to say, hey, man, stick with us, you know. So there was a lot of that probably going on. And here's what Josh Pate of Late Kick said. He said, I like Mark Stoops a lot, which is irrelevant to my next thought. I've never seen a revolt over a potential hire like the one I'm seeing from Texas A&M folks tonight, near universal outrage. And then he came back later and said, I've done entire shows on Shiano, Tennessee, and I have high school kids schooling me about it in replies. So basically everybody's like, well, what about Shiano and Tennessee? I was in the middle of that, and I can tell you, Tennessee fans, it wasn't as split as everybody says. I think there was a bunch of Tennessee fans did not want him hired for a multitude of reasons. And they threw a fit on social media, and it got ugly. And then our AD actually got fired because he was in the middle of hiring Mike Leach out in Washington at the time. And that was after he had been told that he's not going to be hiring Greg Schiano. They ordered him back on a plane and fired him when he got back to Tennessee, or they might have fired him on the way back. So there was a big mess over that, and I think that's what happened here. I think the Texas A&M people heard about it, and they were like, they just weren't excited about Mark Stoops. And look, Mark Stoops would have been a decent hire for them. I don't know that it's, I think they just wanted something a little sexier than that. And then they wound up with Mike Elko. We'll get into that here in a second. But that's somebody they at least knew and had been a defensive coordinator at Texas A&M. And here there's other people talking about it. Said Greg Schiano to Tennessee was bad, but it was split. But you're right, everyone seems to be questioning this hire. Says the Tennessee Greg Schiano was pretty dang bad. They have not gone Tennessee versus Greg Schiano yet. And here were some of the funny memes and videos that people put out. Here's one that says, Texas A&M fans hearing they're hiring a new coach, only to find out it's Mark Stoops. And here's another one. Here's a GIF. Yeah, there's Mark Stoops at Texas A&M. And here's another one. This was pretty funny.
I'm going to binge drink now until I pass out.
Okay. And, of course, you knew they'd do an Aaron Rodgers. They had to do that. So, needless to say, Twitter's having a lot of fun with this. But Texas A&M, look, I remember the Schiano very well. It got really brutal. And I think the fans do have a right to say or have a say into who's going to be the head coach. So I don't have any problem with that. Look, that's just the way it is. They're the ones that show up. They're the ones that buy all the tickets. They support the team. And if they're not happy with the hire, if they're going to revolt early before somebody actually gets hired, because you can't undo it once it's done, or it's going to get real messy. And so they wound up hiring Mike Elko. This is by Pete Thamel of ESPN, and he's a former Texas A&M defensive coordinator who left there 2 years ago, took over the Duke job, had 2 winning campaigns at Duke, which is not easy to do. Duke's not exactly a football school. And he was 9-4 2 years ago, and then this year he was 7-5, but he lost his quarterback, that's tough. But he's had 2 winning seasons at Duke, and that's just not easy to do. And again, he's a good culture fit for him. He's been a defensive coordinator there, so he knows the culture. I don't know that Mark Stoops would have been a good fit there. Stoops is a good coach. He's kind of a Kirby Smart, or poor man's Kirby Smart. He likes really strong defense. He likes to control the line of scrimmage. Not really an offensive guy, but he wants to run the ball and control the clock, which is what Kirby Smart likes to do. The problem is Mark Stoops has 3 stars. Kirby has 4 and 5 stars, and has unlimited number of them. I mean, if you're in Georgia, you literally can't walk down the street and not run into either a high 4-star or a 5-star.
He draws the foul.
It's just one at every corner. So Kirby Smart has his pick, and it's always been that way at Georgia. And the only competition they've got in the state is Georgia Tech, and it's an engineering school. So it makes sense that Kirby Smart is going to be able to out Mark Stoops, and has been able to. That's why whenever Kentucky plays Georgia, it's strength against strength. That never works out when you're not the stronger of the two. It takes somebody that can throw some really weird stuff at you to outdo your Jimmies and Joes. And Stoops is not looking to do that. He's just looking to punish you. So at Texas A&M, the reason he would have gone is obviously he wanted the 4 and 5 stars, because he can't get the money at Kentucky. The NIL money's not going there. It's going to the basketball team. Because Kentucky fans, football's all great and good, and they like having a winning season. As long as he does that, he'll keep making his $9 million a year, and it'll be no problem. Once you go to Texas A&M, you're going to have to win 10 games a year, period. Whereas if you win 10 at Kentucky, they're going to build a statue out of you. So that's why he obviously wanted to go. Mike Elko, I think, is a good, solid hire. It's probably a B. Mark Stoops would have been a B hire, which is a solid hire. If you wanted to go A, you were going to have to break the bank. There was even talk of getting Kirby Smart for $20 million a year, which Kirby's not going anywhere. You can just forget that crap. And they weren't interested in Urban Meyer. Urban's not going anywhere. I can't believe they didn't hire Lane Kiffin. You could have got Kiffin. You'd had to pay him a lot, though, and they probably didn't want to go down that road again. And Kiffin brings his own set of problems, but he has one at the SEC level, which, look, at Ole Miss is not easy to do. So it sounds like they just took the safe hire. And the problem is when you let somebody go, especially when it comes to coaching, it's not like you just get to go down to Walmart and just pick out the best thing. It's not like that. They tried to get the Oregon guy, couldn't do it. Tried to get Ryan Day, couldn't do it. And the Oregon guy, he's got that Nike money. He's not going anywhere. So they kind of ran into some roadblocks there. Urban's not coming back. So they wound up going with either the UTSA guy, Mark Stoops, or the Duke guy. And I think they made a decent choice. He should do fine there. Look, anybody should win at Texas A&M. They got the Jimmies and Joes. They got the money, the facilities, plenty of recruits live in Texas. It's going to be tough, though, with Texas coming into the SEC, because Texas A&M's got that little brother syndrome, and Texas is playing really well this year. That's another reason why Jimbo got fired.
Haven't you noticed? You got to be a man to play in my league.
And Jimbo, the biggest mistake he made this year, first of all, his quarterback got hurt, which did not help him at all. But not going for it on 4th down inside Alabama's territory, that really turned the crowd against him, something awful. You've got to take your shot at the king to take him down, and he didn't do it. He kind of wimped out. And ever since then, it's like just A&M fans just turned on him completely. They were like, okay, he's just not going to be tough, and we can't deal with that. So those things matter. It may sound like a little thing, that one call, but it set the tone for the rest of the season, and it turned people against him bad. So the Mike Elko hire is fine. I think they'll be okay there, and I do think Mark Stoops kind of got Shiano'd a little bit, honestly. I think that's pretty obvious. And I think Stoops is fine where he's at. He probably wanted one good shot and win a national title, which he would have got at Texas A&M, but eventually he'd probably got chewed up and spit out there. Because, look, he's a caustic dude. You're not going to be able to just get along with him, and he's not going to go along and get along. He's not that type personality. He's very much a bull in a china shop. So going with Mike Elko, who understands the area really well, that's the better hire for him, honestly. And you can tell the fan base is happy with it. And really, Mark Stoops almost being hired does a huge favor for Elko, because now Elko looks like a great hire to him, whereas before it would have been, well, it's an okay hire, but, you know, nothing great. So it actually is a huge favor to Mike Elko. He probably ought to thank Mark Stoops. So I did want to cover this today. I thought that was just a very interesting story. You know, that's right up my alley. And if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Lets me know to continue to cover the SEC, all these big NCAA stories, the first coaching or anything like that. The Michigan story, man, I'm not anywhere near done with that one. And if you're not subscribed, it's on your right, my left. Just hit that little button. I would appreciate it. And right over here's the most recent video that YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.